lost weight?
I have. But I think I'll put it back on over this holiday. I ate what I wanted. Just been away with the kids.
You know that picture you sent me with all the pizzas?
Yeah.
Did you eat all of that?
I did. I had 2 large pizzas to myself. But they were very good.
So you know when I remind you every episode that we're doing Ben Nevis in a few weeks' time?
Oh no, you're going to have to roll me up it and down it.
I'm not touching you.
Well, I have lost a bit of weight. I've shifted some, and I was on my holidays, so I know it's not the right mindset for us mountaineers.
Yeah.
Oh, you alright?
Yeah, I'm good, buddy. I'm all good. I was back to work today, but I've done it 3-4 times now. I forget it's bank holiday, and all the other managers, they all told the day off, or they take the day off as leave.
Yeah.
So I went in. In fact, I didn't realise it was bank holiday, and this is the depressing bit. So I went for a dip this morning early. I got down.
Saw that on your Insta.
Beautiful morning.
Jackie Boy shit.
We had orangey red skies coming up, just as that was coming up over the water. It's beautiful. Got out there for a dip. Got myself changed. Well, not really. I got myself dry in my car. And I always go to the Costa on the way to work, and I'll get changed in the Costa and I'll grab a coffee. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. It's my little routine when I do a dip.
Yeah.
Pulled up to the Costa, all the lights are off in there. And then instantly in my head I went, the little voice in my head just went, "It's bank holiday, you idiots!
Bank holiday Monday.
You idiots!"
Yeah.
And I was for fuck's sake. So I had to get changed when I got into work. And I just put a bit of down on my day. I went into my morning meeting, and my mate Mike was in there, and he straight away just looked at me and he went, "Jack, what's up?" He said, "You look really down." And I had to explain to him. I said, "Mate," I said, "I messed up today." I said, "I should have told it off or got leave." But it was okay. It turned into a productive day. I got some work done, and it was a good day. It was a good day. I caught up with a few people who've been on leave recently. So
it's been a long day, and you're still put in the dedication to dare to talk, and then sat at my flat at what time is it? Silly o'clock, and we're doing the intro to the latest episode.
Yes,
so that's dedication, mate.
Yeah, no, I got done at work, got home, got a workout in, went for a big long walk as well, and then you rang me and you wanted me here. So I had to quickly jump in the shower, and I had food ready to go.
You ate in the car on the way down?
I put the food into like a container with a fork, and I ate it in the car on the way here.
Dedication is what it takes.
Don't eat and drive, boys and girls.
No.
Do not do that. Alright, it's a terrible thing to do, but I had to get here for the podcast because it's dedication.
Yes, and it's paying off. This hard work's paying off. My phone's been blowing up this weekend. Yours has. I don't know if anyone's posted the podcast or some. I don't know what's happened, but we've had a lot of more feedback than what we've
I think it's
had
the impact of the girls, to be honest with you, mate.
Yeah.
I told you, we need to make
a few women on there.
We need to make the podcast more diverse.
Yeah,
and we got 2 fantastic ladies to come on and share their story.
Yeah,
one will be the second one will be released this week, won't it?
Yeah. You can drop it tonight if you want. It's ready to go, isn't it?
A bit late though now.
Yeah, or tomorrow, whatever floats your boat.
Okay. Laura's story that'll be going up this week.
Yeah.
And then obviously, we had a fantastic story last week as well.
Yeah.
So
we've got a couple more women coming on as well. Victoria's going to share her ADHD story. She's trying to get a diagnosis, which is close to home to me as well because I'm in the middle of trying to get diagnosed for that. And someone else is coming on.
Gypsy, wasn't she?
Gypsy. There's we've got a lot of guests lined up.
But who did we have today, Sam?
We had Jamie.
Yeah.
The Wise Monkey's known as
the Wise Monkey.
Yeah. He reached out. I had a brief conversation with him over the phone yesterday, and interesting character, isn't he?
Very interesting character.
And after the phone call yesterday, I just thought we don't normally record on a Monday, do we? And I just thought it seemed right. I'll chance my arm. Is that right?
You've thrown it out there anyway.
Yeah, I thought I'll see if he could come on and see if you could come on, and got both in the same room tonight. So I thought, bang, boom.
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 Yeah. But it's terrible.
Had a worse than my
awful.
peace out.
I don't know. We're getting too casual with this now. I feel like we're throwing random
Yeah,
stuff out.
I normally finish the podcast with peace out as well. It wasn't appropriate tonight. So I'm glad I've got to do my peace out now because
it would have been the most inappropriate time ever.
And it's, do you know what? He said that all that inspirational stuff, and it did run through my mind at the end to just say peace out because that's how I like to finish the podcast. But out of respect for Jamie, I didn't.
You could have done it softly. When I
did in my head. I don't know.
When I said like, "Thank you for coming on," you could have just gone, "Yeah, no,
peace out,
peace out,
peace out,
peace out."
Yeah, yeah. No, I could have done. But no, what an inspirational guy. He's suffered with. It's a story filled with health anxiety, which is close to both of our hearts, really.
Yeah, no, he had a very traumatic period of his life, it really opened up about some nasty stuff that he went through, and very, very open. But he has turned his life around, and he's certainly in a more positive mindset now, and he uses what he's been through to help others, and put out some positivity in the world, love and light.
Yeah, exactly.
So please enjoy the episode. I'm sure anyone that listens can get something from Jamie's story. So please enjoy. Like and subscribe. YouTube, Spotify. I'm Jackie Boy Sheb on Instagram. Sam is
up there _2_dip.
Please add yourselves to our Facebook group, Dare to Dip Facebook group. It's a closed group, isn't it, because of the settings or whatnot?
Yeah, it's closed. We can't change the settings, but if you add to it,
if you ask to join, one of the admins will bring you in there. It's a growing group. It's an amazing community.
Yep.
And yes, so please.
And I'm also on Tinder if you'd like to. No. Whoa. Inappropriate. Okay.
No.
Sorry, inappropriate.
Tinder promotion, Sam. Come on.
True story, bro.
Mate, what are you doing? Is it really that bad, man?
No, I'm still celibate. We're only 10 more days till I'm a year sober. Boom.
Is it 10 days? No, not yet. 10th of September, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're the 29th today, brother.
How many days is there? Nearly 1 year sober, guys. Anyway, enjoy the episode. I'm Sam.
And I'm Jack.
This is Dare to Talk, and today we've got Jamie here sharing his story. I was away this weekend and a message popped up, and you reached out to me. We had a little chat on the phone, and I was instantly drawn into. You're very obviously a likeable guy, man. We were talking on the phone, and I was just drawn to what you were saying, which has made me. I do things with my gut these days instead of my mind, and I thought I'm going to get him straight on if he's up for it. And
then Sam texts me and say, "Jack, can you come round and do this podcast with me?"
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm working, and then I'm training, and then okay, let's get around here. Yeah.
We normally record on a Wednesday.
Dinner in the car on the way here.
Something was telling me we need to hear your story, and since this is the first time we've met.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And what we've learnt in that short time is we've all suffered from the same mental health issues in the past, which is incredible, I think. And our goal, and we've had a little conversation here, we set out to talk about things that other people are uncomfortable to talk about in order to help others, and from what I've gathered, that's what you want to do here today as well.
Where did it all begin? Yeah, where did you grow up? What's kind of your roots?
My roots are, I'm an Ipswich lad.
Okay.
Yeah. I have ventured. I have obviously holidayed in many different places. But yeah, of course, my roots are in Ipswich. Parents do not come from Ipswich. My mum's a London girl. My dad is from up north. So that was a bit of a fiery combination. But yeah, my roots have always been around. But I've always kind of been slightly undercurrent. Do you know what I mean? I'm not somebody that would necessarily jump out and say, "Hello, I'm at your party," type of person, you know. So yeah, just growing up locally, really. Yeah. That's where my roots are.
What school did you go to?
I went to, back in my day, the fact that I'm fast approaching 50. It was Nacton Heath, which was Lancia at the time, but but it's now Holy Wells, I believe. Yeah. So just around the Nacton estate. So every estate has their little cliques and stuff, but you know, when you're somebody that don't get involved in them cliques, you have friends everywhere, you know. So
brothers, sisters.
Yeah, I unfortunately lost my oldest brother, but I have 2 brothers now and 2 sisters. Yeah.
Close family.
Yeah, reasonably. I won't say, you know, families are complicated things, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you get on one minute, you don't the next. And I think it's the same with anybody. It's the same as friendships. You know, not everything is hunky-dory all the time. And I think you'd be quite ignorant to consider that, you know, every family gets on all of the time. You know, the bigger the family, the bigger the problem sometimes. I think that's, you know, you get up every day and your day is filled with 10% problems, but 90% how you react to them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
And so.
Now we spoke briefly, and we spoke that you suffered from health anxiety. I know you don't like dwelling too much on the past these days, but I think it's important to tell your story so it can help others. So do you want to talk a little bit about when all that started?
Yeah. So essentially, it was 20 years. So you know, you get people that have addictions that say that they've been sober for 10 years. I like to think that I've been mentally free of my chains for around 10 years. So it was about 20 years ago. But the issue is not everything that you see, not everything that you read, or not everything that you hear, irrelevant of how solid podcasts are and everything. You kind of get so many differences of opinion. That's difficult for anyone, for any listener to be able to grab onto something and say that's relative to me. So, you know, when I'm looking and when I'm listening or reading something about mental health, I understand everybody else's struggles, because when you go through it yourself, it's very different. You know, so you can be kind of blinded by a lot. So not everything that you read or hear is exciting or can add value to your life, especially across social platforms. However, what I'd like to say is I can promise, because I've been through it, that people will 100%, if you take away a small chunk of my story and apply it to your day-to-day routine, I am 100% guaranteeing you that you will 100% come out the other side, because I've been there and done it. But yeah, onto my story. So Jack was just saying about where I grew up. Everything was kind of normal. No big deals, no issues, and that's the thing. There was absolutely no issues at all. The parents were good, siblings were good, schooling was good. I just done like an average kid done, you know. I played pro football. I done boxing at my amateur gym. Very sporty, and I got into a relationship at 19. Some people get in relationships later on in life. That was the age then, you know, that was just what you'd done. And everything kind of moved on, got a house, got responsibilities early. As far as I was concerned, I was out of the family home, I was living the life, I could come and go as I pleased, and everything was really, really good. Everything was all what I believed was good. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward, because that's just essentially a marriage at that point, and so that bit can be missed out. But I came home after having a pretty straightforward, non-eventful life, essentially, and I came home on the 6th of January 2006, and midway through my meal, I had, personally for me, it was an instant fear of absolute dread, but not dread like some people say that they have panic attacks and they have this association with dread. For me, it was I was going to die. So I had a feeling of heat, warmth, like water filling up my legs for me, and it was moving reasonably slow, but it was coming up. But it had an association with my thought process, and my thought process was that by the time that it reaches my head, that's the light out and that's me dead. So that's how I was thinking, and I was a relatively sensible thinker, you know, no more academic than the next guy, or woman, but that's how my thought process was on that night. And I remember saying to my my children's mother at the time, I just said, look, we lived in a bungalow, and I said, I need to get into the bedroom because I think I'm brain hemorrhaging, or I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to die. Obviously she was like thinking I was crazy, and essentially to some degree I kind of was, because crazy is just really having irregular thoughts in it.
Yeah.
People tend to dress up what crazy is, but unless you've actually been in that situation, I don't really think you've got a right to say.
Yeah.
That's really difficult. So I went in, and this feeling was continually moving on, and it was getting severe. So I laid on the bed, and it was just getting worse and worse. And eventually, over time, fast forwarding it 5-10 minutes, it got to my head. Yeah. So the next thing I remember, I woke up. It was the early hours in the morning. Whether I passed out or not, who knows? But I woke up, and every conceivable thing that had happened a few hours earlier, obviously 5-6 hours earlier, had gone. I felt absolutely fucking exhausted. Seriously exhausted. It was like I mean, I train all the time. Everybody who knows me knows I'm constantly training, as you'll find more about that later. But yeah, and I was exhausted, and I remember going in, like I say, we lived in a bungalow. I remember going into the lounge, and little did I know at the time, but that's where my new habits started. So I laid down on the couch, and little did I know that's where I would reside for the next 3 years on that night. So going to work from the age of 19, moving it across another 10 years, that had been, I had my own successful business up to that point, employing 18 people, with relatively no financial issues. I wasn't like, I was going through anything. It just came out of nowhere. So anyway, so then I fall asleep again, wake up the following day, which was Saturday, and my wife needs to go in town, and she takes the kids in town. I ask her to take the kids in town. I'm feeling exhausted still, a bit strange, senses seriously through the roof, because I had no idea what had happened the day before. I mean, what happened? Was you overthinking things then? Like, yeah, of course.
Going through things
what's
in your
going
head,
to
what
happen?
could it have been?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because that's not relatively new. That was absolutely fresh. Started noticing straight away that I was doing very irregular patterns, and it's bizarre because to learn anything you have to continuously repeat a process. But I had somehow learned how to check my pulse all the time, making sure that the same beats were coming through my neck as my wrist, my breathing. That was just strange, but I was, like I said, I was tired, I was exhausted, and my wife went out to town, and literally I laid there, and the minute that door had shut, I reckon within 5 minutes, that came on again. So I picked up my phoned my best friend at the time, and I just said he was going for a divorce, ironically, so we were going for a bit of shit ourselves. But anyway, he was going for a divorce, and he was having a conversation with his wife about this separation thing. Fortunately, that was amicable, so it wasn't too bad. But Joe, listen, you've fucking got to come round. Something's happened to me, and I have no idea what it is, but I'm gonna die, and this is crazy. And he's like, what? Because obviously to the recipient of that phone call, you have to understand that their day is just non-eventful, and they're just listening to somebody that they considered quite strong in a very weak situation. So he obviously came in the door, and I just said, I need to go to hospital right fucking now. It needs to be this minute now. So he's like, look, I'll make a cup of tea, we'll sit down and we'll discuss what's going on. I said, Joe, are you fucking crazy? Are you not seeing what's in front of you? I've got to go to hospital. If I don't go, you're going to have a death on your hands. And he's like, look, sit down. So he makes me a drink, and years later, I don't want to fast forward, it's not like a Quentin Tarantino film. I'm going from the back to the front. But he told me years later that how I looked physically was nothing how I was reacting mentally. So he saw somebody that was strong looking, normal, not sweating. His skin pigmentation was, not red or hot. He was, but seriously just out of control. So he didn't see any necessity to take me to hospital at the time. So he sat down and he just said, look, Jay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will split halfway with you. We'll go down to the Riverside, which was the doctors on the bottom of Lancia Road in Ipswich. And he said, I will go there rather than at the hospital, and you just go and see a doctor. So I said, right, let's go. So I'm literally like in my underpants still, in my boxers, and I'm going, right, let's go. And he's like, right, we're going to finish the drinks. I'm like, Joe, this is time. So we get in the car and we go down there. I walked in, went straight to reception. I can remember the lady clear as day. I only seen her that once, and she's like, how can I help you? And I said, look, I don't know what's going on. I think I'm going to die. My heart rate's crazy. I had this episode yesterday, and everything is 100 miles an hour. It was for me. And she went, "I'll just take a seat." And I remember saying, and bearing in mind, I'm quite a respectful person. Do you know what I mean? And I think everybody that will be listening to this through people that know me will tell you the same. I'm quite the same all the time you meet me, yeah. And hopefully you guys will see the same. Yeah. And I remember saying to her, "Are you fucking crazy? I'm dying, and you're going to get me to sit in a waiting room with all these other people? Are you mad?" And she went, "Mr. Monk, please sit down. We're going to get a doctor to come and see you." So anyway, I'm walking from the reception desk over, and my vision is going. I'm feeling sick. My breathing is just so out of control. That's crazy. We sit down, and I'm saying, "Oh, Joe, I can't get my breath. I just can't breathe. Something's wrong. In actual fact, I've got it wrong. I'm having a heart attack. Something's crazy. It must have been the start of it yesterday, and this is mad." And he's going, "Jay, listen, you're really worrying me now, because there's 8 of us in Friends. We've got 8 friends that we kind of see quite regularly from all over the country, sort of thing." And he said, "And you are by far the strongest person out of all of us. Now this is no joke. What the fuck's going on?" And I just said, and he said, "Have you taken anything?" I went, "Joe, I'm telling you, that ain't me. You know it ain't me." So I eventually see the doctor. We walk in. She asked me to take a seat. And what she said was, she said, "Look, what's the problem?" I told her what had happened. She said, "Look, I'm going to give you a full examination." So now, my breathing's kind of eased, because I'm now in the company of somebody that can solve my issues. So she gives me a full going over stethoscope. She does temperature, she does heart rate, she does everything. She sits in her chair and she starts typing on a computer. And at this point, and I think they're really important points for other people to understand, that I'm picking up on the tiny details what was 20 years ago. And my thought process was, this is going to get sorted. 100%. She's the woman that's going to solve my problems. She's now putting it in there. This may not be good news, so this is like shit moment, but it's also, I'm in the hands of people that can solve that situation. She turned so slowly on that spinny chair, and she said, "Listen, I don't know how else to tell you this, but I've seen countless patients today, and you are by far the fittest patient I've had in probably a week. You got a 61 heartbeat, resting heart rate." She said, "Your temperature is exactly how it's normal. Your lungs are as free as anything." She just said, "I think you're going through some kind of mental sort of problem." And I'm like, no. Listen.
Did that make you feel a bit disheartened because you thought they missed something?
Oh, 100 times over. But not just on that day, on the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
As I'll get onto. So she just said that, and she prescribed me some drugs. And at the time, with no experience of mental health, I remember going out there, and I remember walking across the car park, my friend's arm around me, and he's going, "Jump in." He opened the door. I can remember, do you know, so clinically that day, that's crazy. And I said to him, "Fucking hell, what a doctor's getting paid for, man. What is that all about?" I've gone in, I've told her exactly what happened, and because that was such an event for me, such a massive, huge event, and it is for every sufferer, because that's their event. And sometimes when you speak to practitioners or counsellors alike, you know, you want somebody to have that same exuberant passion of concern, and you don't get it. And you don't get it multiple times on multiple different industries. You just don't get it, and that fucking pissed me off. But little did I know. So I was basing my anger on inexperience at the time. So we go home, and I pop this medication, and because I'm into my PT and I'm into my health, I didn't sit right straight away the minute I kind of took it. So I was like, shit, this is not good. But anyway, I needed to take it. So Joe goes home, life carries on. Remember, that was a Saturday. We move into the Sunday, and I started to get what I would classify as tics, really. So not only was I now feeling my pulse, my stomach was all over the place. Yeah, and I'd somehow got into this really negative mindset. So nothing was pacifying my fear of them missing it, which is exactly what you just said, that they're missing a really big point. And then you start to you start to hold on to things like, I don't know why, you can have 100 people in a room and they're all talking loudly, but the furthest person at the back will be talking about somebody being misdiagnosed, and you will fucking hear that.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
And you will hear that somebody's been misdiagnosed over 99 other people, and you pick up on that. And they will say it's cancer or, you know, obvious ones. And then you start to then, or I did personally, I can't speak for you two because everybody's story is different, but for me personally, all of a sudden I had these symptoms of what I was reading, and I couldn't even watch, and I still can't. I can't even watch soaps on telly.
Yeah.
Because if somebody, unfortunately and inevitably with soaps, everybody has got a problem. That's what makes soaps enjoyable or exciting for other people.
Yeah.
When you do not have health anxiety.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is. So over the next 3 weeks, I managed to wedge myself in between the end of my sofa. There was a gap of about a foot, and the radiator. So in them next 3 weeks, I literally, other than going to the toilet, didn't wash, didn't brush my teeth, didn't do fuck all, because I thought I was dying. So there was no point for the upkeep, no point to pay the rent. And I literally sat there for 3 weeks, and I had all manners. But I'll tell you a few. Some were quite distressing that I don't want to go back to. But my breathing was the worst. I still get issues now. I don't think anybody can honestly say that life is so perfect, and despite research and despite the ability of highly paid individuals to be able to give you the transcript of health and resolution, I think that's a bit ignorant to consider that people are that manipulatable. Manipulatable?
He's the wordsmith.
Yeah.
People can be manipulated.
Yeah. So if you can manipulate somebody's train of thought, then obviously there'd be no mental health.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get closer to it. You understand? So that was kinda to that point. And so a few of them was, another quite stressful one was looking in the mirror and absolutely not knowing who was in the mirror that I was looking at. And yet I was Jay and I knew what I looked like, but standing in the mirror I just could not identify who that person was. So you stand there, do you know, like when a dog hears a noise and it tilts his head? I was kind of like that, you know, constantly checking from my toes up to my head for lumps, moles, irregular heart rate. That was distressing. Not hallucinations, not crazy hallucinations like LSD sort of thing, you know, but just hallucinations, like I'd see things. Going to the toilet was difficult, however you want to say it. Not your wee, but mine personally was at times was just translucently clear and sticky fluid.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely clear fluid.
So it's causing some real physical problems for you as well.
Oh, massively, yeah.
What's crazy is we've both had the same health anxieties, but it's affected us in different ways and that as well. Whereas mine, I'd think that my legs were swelling up, and then my family and that, like, they're not, but I could see that they were bigger, but it was all in my head.
Yeah, not legs.
Yeah.
But I did have that, and that was to the
that
point.
was because I heard that someone who I worked with who died from alcoholism, his legs swelled up before. So that went on it. That I registered that, like what you were saying, held on to it, and then later on my legs were swollen. But it was all in my head. And I remember going to the doctors and I was breathing into told me to breathe into a paper bag, and I was kicking off going, I want the electric stuff on my chest. I don't want to breathe into that, and it was all like, it was just crazy. But like you say, that is so real to the individual they're going through.
Massively.
And they've seen someone panicking loads of times, so they just shone it off.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, why isn't anyone helping me?
Whilst all this is going on, this period where you're experiencing this, it sounds horrendous, Jamie.
Yeah, it was.
It sounds really. How often are you going back and forth to the doctors? Are you when you're
So-
experiencing it, or are you getting disheartened because when you go in there, they're kind of saying that you're healthy, you're fine, and then you're stuck in this eternal loop of just this.
Yeah. So in the first 3 weeks, I visited, and obviously this is the better end of my mental health. The first 3 weeks, believe it or not, I visited the doctors most 5 times in one day.
Okay.
So I went in, made an appointment. Obviously phoned up, made an appointment first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock. Boom, customer number 1 or patient number 1, and I'm in. And I saw a doctor called Dr. McLucky, believe it or not. and literally sat down, and she was like, listen, you know, you've gone to see, I can see what's on, you know, you really need to see somebody, can you fill out this form? So I've kind of filled out this form, and they got some really trying questions like, no, I don't feel like I want to commit suicide. And I was like, you know, and I remember handing it to her. She then, because I had, she then gave me some other medication, because this was like a week after that I'd been to, no, that's probably about 10 days since I've been from the first initial thing. I was like pacing up and down the house, around the bungalow. And then on that day, as soon as I came out, I just literally lost the plot. So I went straight up to reception, went straight to the front of the queue, banged my hand on the front, and I feel really embarrassed about it when I talk about it now. And I just said, look, I've just seen a fucking doctor, and she's told me there's nothing wrong with me. So there's nothing we can do, Mr. Monk. You know, you have to calm down. So then somebody else came out, sat me down. They had no intention of seeing me, really. I was just a problem. Then another doctor come out and said, look, oh, and that was in the room opposite to where I was sitting. So I go in there, and he's like, right, what seems to be the problem? And he's kind of, never found out what his name was. He was kind of stern. He was kind of like, not pull yourself together. And he obviously couldn't swear, but he was putting, I could feel that he was putting pressure. Yeah. He was talking to me like a child. He was like, what are you doing? What's going on? That was, you know, I was 28. Yeah. What are you doing? And that was kind of ensuing things and making it worse. So anyway, cut a long story short, I ended up seeing a couple of practitioners in between that. And finally, I went and saw a doctor called Dr. V. I'm sure there'll be some people know who he is. He also had little patience, but he basically said, look, I'm going to give you the time that no one else gave you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be giving you a blood test, and I'm going to check you for everything. But we've got to sign a deal between us, and that deal is, obviously doctors don't talk to you like this, but this is how it came across, is that when that comes back, and that comes back absolutely clean, then you need to understand that you've got a mental problem. Yeah? You need help. So I said, that is not going to come back with nothing, I can tell you, I can assure you. So probably the most emotional time was, I'd gone to, after that my test results were due on a Tuesday of that week. I went to my mum's, and I'd been out for a few days. That was getting worse, that's what I'm saying. The first 3 weeks was me actually creating habits, health habits, over time. So the first 3 weeks, I then went to my mum's, and I went to my mum's purposely. She didn't know that, but I went to my mum's because I wanted to phone the doctors from there. So I found the doctors from there, and I remember, Mr. Monk, okay, I'm looking for some test results. Hold on, Mr. Monk. So she read my test results out across the phone, and I broke down. I remember I started crying, which was the start of my crying issues, but I started crying and put the phone down, and my mum said, so what are the results? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea, but she'd go, well, is it good or is it bad? And I said, I think it's good, because so I'm phoned back. I said, I'm really, really sorry. I spoke to the same woman again, and she goes, yeah, everything's good, but the doctor does want to see you. So I'm like, okay, so I go in, and they want to do this medication. Anyway, so they put me on some more medication, but if you go back to the start of our conversation, I only had one pill, because I have this real issue about taking pills. So some of my health anxiety was taking pills and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I had friends come round. All I thought about for 3 years, quit work, sold my business, did not work at all. All I thought about was me dying for 3 years. That's all you need to know. That's all I done. There was many variables. If friends came round and they came to keep me company, I would just go in the toilet. If I went for a pee, the pee was always the wrong colour. My shit was always the wrong colour. It was always too loose. That was always a symptom for something. I'd continuously read the computer for symptoms of everything. I just could not relax. It was driving me.
One negative thought led to another,
constant,
to another, yeah.
Constant. And because if you're like, and that's why I'm so desperate to help people, because fortunately, my wife, who I'm with now, she is an incredible person, and she taught me a lot. But I said to her that I am so grateful and so happy that I went through it for 10 years, because I get the opportunity to understand how important life is, and I get the opportunity to factually help people that were as bad as what I was without textbooks.
And you have helped a number of people.
23, yeah. 23. I counsel people now.
Yeah.
I mean, it started off, obviously, when you go through something that crazy for such a long time, and going through football, as I said, and going through boxing and owning your own business, you get to, like I say, you've got 3,000 people on your Facebook, you know, you meet a lot of people, don't you? And fortunately, I know a lot of people, and I hold my relationships dear with everybody, and so everybody was well aware of what I was going through. So obviously, when all of a sudden I became well quite quickly, because I worked out myself.
Can we just talk about that? Sorry, before we.
Yeah, of course.
When was the turning point for you?
The turning point was, I don't want to say the guy's name. I'll tell you who it was, but I just don't think it's fair.
Yeah.
So this is what happened. So fast forward 3 years, I was 16, just shy of 16 stone, and I'm 11.4 now.
I was going to say, you've got quite a bit of weight, because your diet was all over the shop.
No, I was nearly 16 stone when I entered it.
Okay.
And over them 3 years, I basically went down.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I lost weight because everything was not right.
Yeah.
So how it turned out for me was, I had gone through many avenues, doctors, hospitals, lying my way to be able to get, lots of different stuff, and it all fell on deaf ears. And I don't mean, and this is not a poke, a dig at the NHS, it is not, because I think with every industry there is issues and problems, and I think any individual listening to this, or you guys, would think, even if you have one bad employee or one bad family member, that doesn't translate that everybody's bad. It just doesn't. Yeah. So, but for me, and my personal experience was, I'd visit the doctor's hundreds of times, not hundreds of times, that's a slight exaggeration, probably about, in them 3 years, I would probably say, just for my anxiety, probably 50 times, with symptoms of things that they've missed, and they're wrong, and I'm right. And it over a period of time, you learn that the next time is going to be the same, so you don't go, and that's where I became agoraphobic. So I just couldn't go out, couldn't do anything. Nobody understood my story, but I was still going through it, and that was like I said about having a shit, and having what human being passes clear liquid out of their arse? Nobody did. I did. But the minute you start looking at symptoms, that's a real symptom for something really catastrophic. So therefore, my brain's going crazy. So this is how I managed to resolve my situation. Through many hours of research, I stumbled across someone, and basically what they were doing is they were selling the idea of giving me peace and the end to my anxiety and resolution. And but it cost 127 quid. And the 127 quid, bearing in mind I told you that I wasn't working anymore, and we were struggling financially. Bearing in mind I had debt collectors on my door all through this time. There's so many other avenues of it. My mum and dad come to see me, and I needed to borrow the money. And they essentially refused and tried to talk me out of it. You're crazy. And they weren't like that, but for the sake of this conversation, that's how I saw it. And that's not going to solve your problems, Jay. That's just not going to solve your problems. So I'm like, yeah, but it is. Well, what is it? That's a book of some guy's story, and that's a DVD, and he gives you the pillars of how to become successful. And how to get rid of this anxiety, depression, or how you ever want to label it, because I've never really labelled with anything. And he is going to do that for 127 quid. He would be a multi-millionaire if that was the case. And I was just like, listen, you don't understand. So I managed to raise the money myself, and I paid the money. And a few days later, it came. And I remember it, without dramatising this podcast, it dropped on the floor in a brown parcel. I opened it, and the book looked like it had lived 100 years. The DVD was in a clear case, like, do you know, if anybody's burnt a DVD, that was almost like that. But this is the moment. One thing, no, to every 1,000 things that I lost, my dignity, my health, my friends, my freedom, my life, millions of them, yeah, hundreds of them. One thing I had, and I've always had it, and that's why I do quite well, is that I have logic. So if you've ever heard of, do you understand, or ever heard of what Occam's razor is? Occam's razor is the law of logic. And little did I know, I still had it. So my son had a bedroom, obviously, and in that bedroom, he had his PlayStation, and he had an old chair that we'd been given, a reclining chair. And so I'm eager to put this in. It looks like a bag shit, but I'm eager to put this in. So I put this DVD in, and ironically, no bullshit, this chair is identical to that chair.
Really?
Yeah. Strange.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've kicked back on the chair and I've put it on, and this guy comes on, and what he does for 7 minutes, he basically recites pretty much, if I'd had 38 different health anxiety issues, he reeled off 37, including my clear liquid from my arse.
Really?
So he basically said, imagine a news reporter with a banner behind him. He basically said, for everybody that's suffering with mental health issues, there's so many different elements to it, so many different facets to it. This is this. If you're going through health anxiety and you have these, and he said you're going to get depersonalization issues, you'll get nerve issues where you'll get blocks on your body that randomly just come up. I'm like, hold on. So I'm now shifting to the front of my seat. Yeah. And he goes, and then you get anxiety tummy. He said some people unfortunately will get stuff where they pass clear liquid. When you hear that and you have logic, that is the last ounce of your soul that is left. And what my problems were, or what I believed wasn't my problems, was creating the energy for this. Yeah. Then that can stop these real symptoms. I was creating the symptoms, which I felt at the time had to be bullshit. I can't create myself feeling like this, feeling like that. So it went to this situation where this guy says, your health anxiety, you'll get this. And ironically, there was a few bits that you've mentioned. Yeah. But so I was up, I'd shaved, I had a beard then, because obviously I was clean shaven before that, but obviously over time you kind of lose all the respect for yourself. I was up, and I think that was the first time I'd driven in, I can't even tell you, long time. And I went to my mum's, and that was the start. So my windows of happiness started probably hours. So for that next hour, until I saw my wife, that then drummed it into me, that was a load of bollocks. And I'm on to my next chapter of being crazy, believing that. Yeah. So I'm literally, I've got this book, and I've got this DVD, and I'm like going, you got to read it, or you got to watch it, you got to read it, you got to watch it, and you got to understand. And she never did. She wasn't interested, which was obviously one of the major cracks that we ultimately went in our separate directions. So it started off where I'd feel well for an hour, then I'd feel bad again, and because I was naturally dropping in and out of my health anxiety, something new would be on, like I said, soaps on televisions, watching, like I can't watch anything like Casualty, any health documentary, any skin clinic, anything. Yeah,
I think each individual has their own triggers for certain things as well, don't they?
Yeah, so I have all that kind of trigger. So anyway, so then my windows, I started to work on myself, and I got my windows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and obviously I started to do more. I couldn't shake off for a long time. I couldn't shake off my breathing episodes, and I couldn't shake off my crying episodes. So I'd be talking to you guys, and then bomb, I'd just start crying, just overwhelming, and didn't have no idea what it was for. Or I'd sit here, and my breathing would become so shallow, I could not believe that I was even alive. I I just couldn't get it in. It wasn't hyperventilating. That was just almost like a lung had collapsed,
Yeah.
or what I associated with the possibilities, or something was going on. But one thing this guy said was he'd wrote in his book, and he said that he had the breathing issues, and he said that was the worst one for him, and I probably agree. That probably was my worst one, and he said how he got over it was he had been told, because obviously everybody learns, like people will learn from this, from other people, and somebody had said to him that he had this breathing issue, but they were getting him, this was in Germany, and they got him to move out of this house, and he had no choice but to leave this house, and he said, oh, I'm going to die. But because he went out, that kind of released his breathing kind of thing. So he said, so this guy who wrote this book said, this is going to sound like the most craziest situation and scenario, but currently you believe that you're dying when you go through that issue of your breathing. What I want you to do is I want you to go outside, and I want you to run as fast as you can in a direction until you feel like either you have to stop or your body's forcing you to stop.
Yeah.
And he said, and that will rectify your breathing issue. This is a guy that just told me 27, 28 ailments that I had. I had to believe it and I had to trust it. But it's going to go one or two ways, isn't it? So it was a few days. Started to get a breathing issue. I was at night. I was winterish, so January, I don't know, February, March, something like that. And it was dark. Went outside, and I just remember running. That's not far to the corner and to the shops. I remember running. By the time I got to the corner, breathing was gone. And I thought, fuck. And I started putting all the links together. That was the DVD, the book of his story. So many elements were in there. And he's got a very successful business, hugely successful business now as well.
Yeah.
And that was impossible for him to do what he'd done, and he had just basically rectified it. And I'd actually purposely gone out and actually tried this remedy, and it worked. So forever and a day, whenever I get into that situation, I just do that, and it pacifies it instantly. Absolutely instantly. But moving on to kind of the final stage, what I did say to you, the reasons why I wanted to say that is because I kind of, over the 10 years, I have refined, because you've got to remember, and I'm sure you two are the same, you bumbled your way through it. You lied to people, you hid stuff, you know, you went to the toilet just to check something, while all the boys are out and drinking, you're thinking of this problem, and you really believe that it is for the rest of your days. One thing I will say is a couple of undercurrent bits, which I believe is really important. I was told by a doctor that I needed to understand that this was going to be forever, and she was a professional. Obviously she was a GP, and people that have anxiety disorders and mental health disorders, they may drop in and out of them, but they most certainly will be, most sufferers currently at that time will suffer forever, and I needed to settle down into it, take the medication and understand. Obviously my name's Jamie Monk, so we're called Wise Monkey because there's myself that's a PT, there's my wife that's a PT, and there's my son that's a PT, so it's essentially we don't call ourselves the three wise monkeys, but I've been through a lot, so I'd like to consider myself as reasonably wise in a specific field.
That's on Facebook and Instagram.
That's on Facebook and Instagram, and people can get in touch if anyone's struggling.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you just deal with health anxiety, or do you?
No, I deal with now. Obviously, I've been doing it 10 years, so I deal with drug addiction. I deal with lots of stuff. Because obviously something has to start somewhere. Manifest as a seed, and it grows. So what may start as an addiction to class C drugs is the gateway to health, a mental issue. So of course it's getting people to understand. So I've got 3 people that I'm currently dealing with drug addiction. So I had to understand that my logic was banging on my head saying, Jay, this is not right. And then you don't, if you're in a bad marriage, you don't go up to your wife or wife up to their husband and go, listen, we need to speak, tomorrow that's over. We'll just get a mortgage company to sort out this, you have the car, kids stay with me. That's not how it works. It takes months and years. So obviously this was a manifestation of a long time to be able to get into my head. But once I started to apply it, as much as I fucking didn't want to, I really didn't want to, But the pain of me doing it, I've always said, was far less than the pain I was going through with that. So now I've explained to my story. I don't like to revisit my story, but if it can help people, then that's the first time I've gone back on that story in probably 10 years. So it was all a little bit ad hoc. So I need to now put that away again and not bring it out for a bit, as I don't like looking back. Anyway, however, like most people that suffer, the main thing I wanted to get, I can remember how absolutely, at the time, how it disabled me, both mentally and physically, for 10 years of my life. My life was basically on hold, relatively little hope. The dark days, they never faded. In that time, to be in that bubble for that period of time, I don't know how long you guys were in it, or even if you're out of it.
Yeah, some days are a struggle still, but most of the bad days are behind me. That's what I say.
And yes, I was offered medication and professional help, and I had to fill in endless forms and even wait for months to speak to some professional. And in between all that, I had to jump through hoops, and I was mentally struggling, and for that weighed massively on me because I felt neglected. And I was like, here I had an honest problem, you know. And what I needed was direction, I needed healing, and it needed to have imminent support. It wasn't, right, you have an appointment with a psychiatrist in 3 months. It's like, what? 3 months? That's like 90 days of shit.
Hell.
But anyway, moving forward, here I am 10 years after I managed to work out the remedy for myself, and this is the happiest I've ever, well, for the last 10 years I have been proper happy. I've started a new business. I've got lots of facets to it. I help people go through this. I do rehabilitation, I do personal training. They'll obviously find out if they have a look at it. And I do motivational talks, so I go around businesses and do motivational talks. Number 3 at the back is strategy. What I employed first was a strategy. Like most things that demand successful outcomes, a strategy needs to be implemented. For example, when you feel yourself having an anxious day, try to stimulate yourself by listening to a favourite song, watching a funny film, phoning or messaging a strong-minded, positive person, even create a playlist of music or a playlist of films, etc., as your strategy to keeping yourself busy through these periods. But for me, it was exercising and training. Exercise helps not only release feel-good chemicals such as dopamine and endorphins, it also helps us get rid of chemicals that make us feel anxious. So for me, physically changing my own chemicals under my own control was a good place to start to control my mood, and it was instant. Bear in mind, simple things such as walking, meeting friends, starting a new hobby can have profound outcomes. Number 2, in the middle wedged in, is your story. The second change I made was to change my story. I was in a toxic relationship, working long hours for non-reflective wages, had some unhealthy friendships, and had recently lost my eldest brother at an early age. If my continual unhappiness and anxiety and depression was going to improve, I had to identify that my current story wasn't helping and was the catalyst behind it all, and medication was going to keep my story forever alive. And finally, I had to move away from unhealthy friendships and some friends I had had since school. However, this was all in order to create my new story and leave my old story in the past where it belonged. And number 1, without a shadow of a doubt, was mindset. Number 1 was my mindset. So lastly and most importantly, I had to change my mindset. Having a strong mindset is paramount in how successful people will be, how successful you will be with your strategy and story. This was the more difficult but 100% achievable, that's for sure. And I can say that because I've done it. No textbooks, no listening to countless opinions. This was my own actual program to correct myself, and it had to be that way to make the change. You can't be successful all the time, so remember that. You will still have times of anxiousness, but it is all in pursuit of your happiness. So be as consistent as you can and be patient. To conclude, mental health is very real, and many sufferers keep their struggles private. There is not enough resources to help everybody personally, to which I understand. There are also some very tuned in people that offer their free time to talk to sufferers, but not everybody wants to talk, so this is an opportunity of hope and resolution given freely from myself. Work on your strategy, change your story, and work on improving your mindset. I genuinely hope this has given some hope light, encouragement, motivation, sharing what I did to help myself recover from what some think is the impossible.